Good morning. Loud enough? You hear me? I didn't want to let the month of November go by without talking about Native American Awareness Month. Now, we had our big Thanksgiving festival, and we remember back what we learned as children in history class. How much of it is true, we don't know. That the Pilgrims in 1621 came together with Wampanoag and Chief Massasoit and had the first Thanksgiving. But I wanted to say this Native American Awareness Month was actually signed into law by Congress and President George Walker Bush in 1990. And so for the last 22 years, we've had the month of November given to honoring, celebrating, remembering the Native peoples who lived in this land. But before that, 1915, there was a Seneca Indian named Dr. Arthur Parker, who was a director of Museum of Arts and Sciences in Rochester, New York. And he got the ball rolling to have a day dedicated to Native American issues. So under Calvin Coolidge in the 1920s, the second Saturday in May became a Native American Awareness Saturday, but not a lot of people knew about it. So since a Seneca Indian from the Iroquois Confederacy started the whole idea, I wanted to share a speech with you this morning by a great Seneca chief. But before that, I just wanted to show this picture. Anybody know where this is? Montana. Yeah, lovely, my favorite place. This is right a few miles from here in Woodbury. And I know Jake Minicucci is here. Jake knows where this is. This is Nanawaug. So yesterday I was finishing up practicing my speech in the Seneca Leader, and I'm standing on the edge of that. It's about 30 feet down. And there's a plaque to the last chief of the Nanawaug Indians, who were some of the local tribe that lived in this area. And there are many legends about it. He's buried somewhere around there. He sleeps with his fathers, the plaque says. But there was a legend, I don't think it's true, but that he threw himself over the cliff and killed himself because he could see the encroachment of white civilization coming in and destruction of his people and his land, even though the plaque also said he was a friend of the white man. But there are lots of stories about it. It's right here in our area, and it's absolutely gorgeous. It's one of the places I consider a sacred place that I go to for peace and rest with my dog. But I want to just go back to 1970. 1970, I was 14. I was going into high school. It was right before I went into high school, a long time ago. We packed up our station wagon. I came from a very modest middle-class family, but my parents saved up enough to do a trip to Montana. It was 1970. We were getting the wood panel station wagon, and my brother and I basically grew up with fly rods in our hands. So this was a fly fishing trip to Montana. My 3 generations of fly fishermen, my uncles and cousins had been out there in the 60s. They told us what great trout streams there were. My dad saved the money. We went on this trip across the country. And of course, we stopped at all the historical sites on the way. Mount Rushmore, the 4 presidents, see them, Washington, Jefferson, Roosevelt, and Lincoln, of course, our greatest president. The 4 of them, you see them up there in this white granite. They're 60-foot cliffs. Just incredible. At 14, it made a tremendous impression. Then we're at Custer's Last Stand, or the Battle of Little Bighorn, known to the Lakota Sioux as the Battle of the Greasy Field. Then we go into Yellowstone and Glacier. So it's an educational, cultural trip, geographical, as well as trout fishing. And so I fall in love with Montana and the country. So I decide with my best friend growing up that we're going to take off after our sophomore year and do a gap year, which ended up being 2 gap years. We planned it. We actually did it. We got our backpacks on. 1976, we're on the road. We're hitching to Montana, where we worked for 2 years. But on the way, during that time period between my high school years and early college, I read a couple of books. One called Disinherited, which is about the expulsion of Native Americans east of the Mississippi, and how, the Trail of Tears and how they were pushed west. And then the second one was called Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee, which probably most of you have read, by D. Brown, mostly about the Native Americans west of the Mississippi and broken treaties and a whole other sad chapter in American history. And then another book was Black Elk Speaks, about the famous Oglala Sioux Indian medicine man, shaman. So those, coupled with my beloved professor at Boston University, Howard Zinn, I read The People's History of the United States, and the very first chapter talks about the destruction by Columbus of the Arawak Indians, beginning the whole saga of the plight of indigenous peoples in the Americas. So those changed my consciousness. So on this second trip out at 20, I saw Mount Rushmore differently, and I thought, wow, this is on sacred Lakota Sioux territory. How do the Lakota Indians feel about this? So I went, and I wanted to go down to, and I didn't get around to going down to see the statue of Crazy Horse in Custer, South Dakota. 2 years ago with Mrs. Ganung, we were driving across, and I said, I've been waiting 30 years to see this, and we went and saw the statue that's been worked on. It's over 64 years now. They've been carving. It's 563 feet high. It's the largest statue in the world when it's completed of Crazy Horse. And when it's completed, it'll show him pointing defiantly across the sacred Black Hills of South Dakota, saying, my land is where my people are buried. And there's controversy about that among Native Americans, but I started to think really deeply. And so when I was a minister in Maine for many years, I started to get into a thing on Native American Heritage Month where I do many speeches from some of the great Indian leaders in history, of Cochise, of the Apaches, of Red Cloud, of the Teton Sioux, Crazy Horse, Chief Joseph of the Nez Perce, Chief Seattle of the Suquamish. And today, I want to share with you a speech by the Seneca leader who was known as Red Jacket, or Sago Yiwata. Means, I keep my people awake. Keep my people awake is what Sago Yiwata means. But he was called Red Jacket because he was an ally, like most of the Iroquois nation, with the British during the Revolutionary War and before that. So they gave him lots of red jackets. But he has this powerful speech about in defense of Native American religion. I want to share with you. But it's not only about religion. We think, because a lot of us aren't religious anymore, and we think, oh, closed-minded religious people. It's also about being closed-minded in our political sense, which most of us are. It's also about thinking that we know what is right and what is true, knowing that we think our Western imperialist capitalist system is the best and it's the only way. So don't think just in terms of religion. But here he is meeting with a missionary from the Boston Missionary Society, speaking on behalf of the Iroquois nations and addressing them. They want to come into the Iroquois territory, and they want to proselytize, evangelize in the area. So he starts out, this is Chief Sago Yiwata. Friend and brother, by the will of the Great Spirit that we come together at this time. For he orders all things, and he has given us this fine day for his counsel. He has taken his garment from before the sun. He causes it to shine on us with brightness. He has opened our eyes so that we see clearly. He has unstopped our ears so we hear distinctly the words that you are speaking. For all these things we give thanks to the Great Spirit and to him only. Brother, this council fire was called by you. It is at your request that we come together at this time. We have listened with attention to what you had to say. And you have requested of us that we speak our minds freely. This brings us great joy. For now we consider we stand upright before you and we can speak what we think. All have listened to your voice. All respond to you now as one man, for our minds are agreed. Brother, you say you want an answer to your talk before you leave this place. And it is right that you should have one. For you are a long way from home, and we do not wish to detain you. But let us look back a little. Let us consider what our fathers taught us, what we heard from the white people. Brother, listen to us. There was a time when our ancestors owned all of this land. Their seats extended from the rising to the setting of the sun. And all this land was given by the Great Spirit for use by the Indian. He gave us the buffalo, he gave us the deer, and all the animals for food. He gave us the bear and the deer to serve us as clothing. He scattered them across the country, and he taught us how to take them. He caused the earth to produce corn for bread. And all these things he did for the red man, because he loved him. Even when we had a dispute over our sacred hunting grounds, we generally settled it with little bloodshed. But then an evil day came upon our land when your forefathers came across the great waters. They were small in number. They found us as friends, not enemies. They said they fled their own country for fear of wicked men. And they'd come here to enjoy their religion. They asked us for a small seat, a small piece of land. We took pity on them. We granted their request and they sat down among us. We welcomed them into our country. We gave them corn, we gave them meat, and they gave us poison. Brother, the white people had now found our country. Tidings were carried back across the great waters, and many more people came. We did not fear them. We took them as friends. They called us brothers. We gave them a large seat, a large tract of land. But then their numbers increased greatly. They wanted more land, and they wanted our country. Our eyes were opened, and our minds became uneasy. Then wars broke out. Indians were hired to kill other Indians. Many of our people were destroyed. They brought strong liquors among us. Thousands of our people were slain. Brother, listen. Our seat was once very large and yours very small. But now your people far outnumber ours, and the Indian scarcely has a place where he can lay his blanket. You have our country, but still you're not satisfied. Now you want to force your religion upon us. Brother, continue to listen to us. You say you were sent here to instruct us how to worship the Great Spirit, agreeable to his mind. You say if we don't accept the religion of the white people, we will be unhappy in the hereafter. You say you are right. You say that we are wrong. But how can you know this to be true? We know your religion is written in a book, but if it was intended for us as well as for you, why didn't the Great Spirit give it to us? And not only to us, why did he not give to our forefathers the knowledge that is in that book, and the means to understand it correctly? We only know what's in the book according to what you tell us. When can the Indian know what to believe when he has been so often deceived by the white man? Brother, you say that there's only one way to worship and serve the Great Spirit. But if there's only one true religion, why do white people so often differ about it? Why not all agree? You can all read your book. Brother, we don't understand these things. We have been told that your religion was given to your forefathers and handed down to you, father to son. But our religion was also given to our forefathers and handed down to us, their children. That is the way we worship. We give thanks to the Great Spirit for all the favors we receive. He's taught us to love one another and be united. We never quarrel about religion. Brother, we know the Great Spirit has made us all, but he has made a great difference between his white children and his red children. To us, given a different complexion, different customs. To you, he's given the arts. To these he has not yet opened our eyes. We know these things to be true. But since there's such a great difference between us, why not conclude he's given us a different religion according to our understanding? We know he does right. We know the Great Spirit does what's best for his children, so we are satisfied. Brother, we don't wish to destroy your religion. We don't wish to take it from you. We only wish to enjoy our own. You say you have not come here to take our land, take our money, only to enlighten our minds and bring salvation to our souls. I'll tell you this, I have been to some of your meetings, and I have seen you take money at the meeting. I don't know what it was intended for, I suppose for your minister, but if we conform to your way of thinking, perhaps you will ask some from us. Brother, we heard you've been preaching to the white people in this area. These people are our neighbors. We're acquainted with them. So we'll wait and see what effect your preaching has on them. If it does them good, if it makes them honest, if it makes them less disposed to deceive the Indian, we will consider again what you have said to us. Brother, this is our answer to your talk. It's all we have to say to you at the present time. And now that we are getting ready to part, we will take you by the hand. We will hope and pray that the Great Spirit will protect you on your journey, that you may return safe to your friends. These are the words of Chief Sagaliwatha, Red Jacket of the Seneca. He's addressing Reverend Jacob Cram from the Boston Missionary Society. They did not leave as Reverend Cram would not shake his hand. He would not have fellowship with someone who worships the devil. It was something, I paraphrase, that Chief Seneca said, how could our religion be looked at, as we often do, disparage Native American peoples, indigenous peoples, as primitive? How could it be a primitive religion when we are so tolerant, we practice diversity, acceptance and understanding and inclusiveness, when your religion claims to be the absolute truth? Who's really the primitive one? You know, we're losing so much so much great knowledge from indigenous cultures around the world. There was a conference in 1993 at the United Nations, some of the great Indian chiefs, leaders in North America, and they were addressing the ecological, the ethical, the spiritual crisis we're facing. This is 20 years ago. We have multiple problems now in terms of environment, relations, and the way human rights issues. Very little, with something buried in the back of the New York Times, page 53. Nothing's covered about it. It was so important. We have so much to learn about sustainability, how to use resources, how to live in community. And if you read more about the Iroquois, you'll find out that our forefathers, Benjamin Franklin, Jefferson, Adams, Washington, we learned more about democracy from the Iroquois than we did from the Greeks, the Romans, from other Europeans. And even the great European philosophers like Rousseau and Locke, Moore, Hobbes, they knew about Native American democratic ideas. So there's so much to be learned. So to stay open, not to over-romanticize, but to wake up, keep open-minded. What's the best way for us to live in this community, in this global community today? What is success? Where are you going with your lives? What are you doing? How do we look at land? We look at it as dollar signs and profit and money? Or do we see it as something sacred and beautiful like Nanawa? Something to just be appreciated. You know, so go with that speech. Think about it. Think about the wisdom of some of our Native American brothers and sisters. Think about how the experience could have been different when the Europeans came here. And the encounter, how could it have been different and more positive? And what can we do today to make a difference? Welcome back. Have a great day.